Love is often mistaken for what's loudly declared. We've grown up on movies and novels that taught us to look for grand gestures and poetic confessions. But in real life, it's not usually that loud. In fact, some of the deepest expressions of love are profoundly quiet. And one of the most telling yet easily overlooked signs is this: consistent presence. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about someone who shows up, not once or twice when it's easy or convenient, but regularly, and especially when it matters most. This is not about them saying they care. It's about them being there in the moments that test patience, endurance, and emotional availability. And often they don't make a show of it. There's no trumpet sound announcing their support. They're just present. They remember your appointment you forgot you told them about. They notice your mood shift before you even put it into words. They cancel something minor to be beside you when you're having a rough day. Philosophically, love is less about intention and more about orientation. The ancient Greeks used the word agape, a form of love that is action-based, other-focused, and consistent. When someone loves you in this way, they don't disappear when things get uncomfortable. They remain steady in a world that is anything but. That kind of presence isn't casual, it's commitment in its purest form. Psychologically, we crave secure attachments. And one of the key indicators of a secure connection is this very pattern. The other person is consistently accessible and responsive. That doesn't mean they're perfect or omnipresent, but it means you can rely on them. And reliability breeds emotional safety, arguably one of the most essential ingredients for love to flourish. When someone is always there when you need them, not because they have to be, but because they choose to be, that's love in its most unspoken sense. In form, it's not performative. It doesn't beg for credit. It simply is. And it's powerful because it goes beyond momentary feelings and touches something deeper: character, integrity, and intentional care. So when you're asking yourself, do they love me? Don't just listen for the words. Watch for the pattern. Look at where they are when things go quiet or hard or unglamorous, because the person who shows up for you again and again is telling you something profound without ever having to say it. Another quiet but unmistakable sign of love is the emergence of a protective instinct, not in some exaggerated macho sense, but in a far more subtle and psychologically grounded way. When someone genuinely loves you, they begin to develop a natural sensitivity to your emotional and physical well-being. They start to anticipate harm before it reaches you, and they act, often without drawing attention to it. Protection in this context isn't about control. It's not about ownership or dominance or restricting your freedom. It's about a deep-seated desire to preserve what matters. And when a person truly cares for you, you become what matters. They guard your energy. They shield you, sometimes even from yourself, when you're about to walk into something painful. Not because they think you're weak, but because they see you, and they can't bear the idea of you being unnecessarily wounded. This instinct isn't manufactured. It's not taught. It's an extension of what the philosopher Martin Buber would call the I-thou relationship, a way of seeing the other person not as a utility, not as an object to fulfill a desire, but as a being of equal moral worth. When someone sees you like that, your pain becomes their concern, your peace becomes their priority, even if they don't have the language to explain it. From a psychological standpoint, we know that secure attachment involves something called emotional attunement. This means being able to feel when someone else is off before they even say a word. You mentioned something in passing. I didn't sleep well last night, and hours later they check in. That's not coincidence, that's care. And care over time becomes a kind of psychological armor. You feel safer with them, not just physically, but emotionally, existentially. You breathe easier in their presence. That's protection, not as dominance, but as devotion. The world is chaotic, and many of us walk around wearing invisible armor just to get through the day. But when someone truly loves you, they don't add to that weight. They remove some of it. They don't just stand in front of the storm. Sometimes they hold your hand while you face it. That subtle difference between saving you and standing with you is everything. So if you're unsure how someone feels, don't just ask what they've said. Ask yourself, when I was most exposed, most uncertain, most tired, did they shield me or did they disappear? Another indicator, often misunderstood yet deeply revealing, is emotional investment. This is not about someone texting you all day or flooding you with compliments. It's about attention, focused, thoughtful attention that reflects real concern for your inner world. When someone is emotionally invested in you, they remember things, not just events, but details. The name of the song you said reminded you of your childhood, the way your voice drops when you're anxious, or how you hesitate before bringing up something that really matters. You see, real love listens differently. It's not passively absorbing sound. It's noticing patterns. It pays attention to the subtext beneath your words. It remembers what you don't say just as much as what you do. Because when someone is emotionally invested, they've placed a part of their own identity in their relationship with you. What affects you affects them. Your joy becomes a shared experience. So does your pain. This isn't sentimentality. It's a psychological reality. Human beings are wired to form attachments, and the depth of those attachments can be measured by what's called empathic accuracy, the ability to understand and respond to the unspoken emotions of another person. If they're tuned in, you'll feel it. They'll follow up on things you forgot you even mentioned. They'll notice when your laughter feels forced. They'll bring you coffee, not because it's impressive, but because they remember exactly how you like it. In the philosophical sense, this is a form of moral seriousness. When someone treats you like a project worthy of study, attention, and care, they are acknowledging your individual complexity. They're saying, in essence, you matter enough for me to learn you. That's not casual affection, that's investment, and investment always carries risk, the risk of loss, of rejection, of vulnerability. So when someone leans in any way, even quietly, it's because they've chosen to care more than they protect themselves. And that matters because it means they see you not as a passing experience, but as a long-term emotional commitment. A person like that won't always say, I love you outright, but you'll feel it in the way they remember you, in the way they listen, in the way they try to understand your world without needing to be asked. One of the more subtle yet profoundly revealing signs of love is prioritization without self-congratulation. In a world that's increasingly obsessed with performance, where every good deed is broadcast, every kind gesture is filtered through social media, there's something radically honest about someone who puts your needs first and doesn't make a spectacle of it. They don't announce what they've done for you. They don't expect applause. They simply adjust their behavior in ways that place your well-being near the center of their concern. This doesn't mean they abandon themselves or become a martyr. It means they weigh your needs in their decision-making. They remember you exist even when you're not around. And perhaps more importantly, they care about your experience even when no one is watching. There's a kind of quiet dignity in that, an implicit message that says, you matter to me more than my temporary convenience. Psychologically, this taps into the idea of reciprocal altruism. The person who sacrifices in small, consistent ways without demanding recognition is signaling long-term commitment. They're demonstrating that their connection to you isn't purely transactional. And philosophically, this is the essence of virtue. Aristotle spoke of the good life being rooted in action aligned with purpose. When someone chooses over and over again to make decisions that protect or uplift you, especially when they have nothing to gain from it, that's not just affection, it's character. Now contrast that with the person who only shows up when there's something in it for them, or the one who loudly proclaims, I did this for you, expecting emotional payment in return. That's not love, it's a performance. And many people confuse the two because they look similar from the outside. But the difference becomes clear over time. One gives quietly and consistently, the other guards. There's loudly and sporadically, always keeping score. Real love doesn't keep score. It doesn't see your needs as an inconvenience. Instead, it finds fulfillment in serving those needs. And this is what makes it powerful, because it's not based on emotion alone, but on a deliberate, repeated choice to care. So ask yourself, when you're not at your best, when you're not fun, not easy to love, do they still show up? Do they still choose you in the small, quiet moments without needing to be seen? Vulnerability is often misunderstood. It's mistaken for weakness or for some kind of emotional oversharing that's more about performance than connection. But in truth, vulnerability, real vulnerability, is one of the strongest indicators of love, especially when it appears in quiet, meaningful moments. And ironically, the people who feel the deepest love are often the slowest to express it because they understand the weight of what's being offered when they finally do. When someone starts to let you into their emotional world, not just what they've done, but what they feel, you're witnessing a rare kind of intimacy. They might talk about a fear they usually mask with humor, or a past disappointment they've never spoken aloud. That's not casual. That's not scripted. That's someone choosing to lower their emotional defenses, not because it's comfortable, but because it's real. And that level of disclosure always comes with risk, the risk of judgment, of misunderstanding, of emotional exposure, which means that when someone lets you in, you're not just being trusted, you're being loved. Psychologically, this ties directly into what attachment theorists call secure functioning. In healthy, bonded relationships, vulnerability isn't weaponized, it's respected. The person doesn't open up to manipulate or guilt you. They open up because they want to be seen. And being seen, truly seen, for who you are, not who you pretend to be, is one of the core experiences of love. Philosophically, you could even say that vulnerability is the gateway to love. You cannot love someone or be loved while wearing full armor. You have to be willing to expose your flaws, your fears, your aspirations, your raw humanity. That's where connection lives. When someone takes that risk with you without a guarantee of return, they're engaging in something profound. They're not just trying to win you, they're trying to know you and be known by you in return. What's important here is that this kind of vulnerability isn't loud. It doesn't come with dramatic confessions or long speeches. Sometimes it looks like a sigh before an honest sentence or a pause before saying something they've never said out loud. You have to be paying attention because these are the moments when love isn't just shown, it's revealed. So look closely. When they speak softly about something that matters, when they share what scares them or admit what they're still working on, that's not weakness. One of the clearest yet often ignored signals that someone is falling in love is how they begin to speak about the future, not necessarily in grand declarations or with overly romantic visions, but in the quiet way their language shifts from I to we. This linguistic transformation is subtle, but it's deeply telling because people don't include others in their future by accident when someone starts saying we should try that or that's something we could do. It's not just a habit, it's a reflection of psychological commitment and emotional projection. This shift points to something significant. You've moved from being a temporary experience to becoming part of their mental map of tomorrow, and that is no small thing. Philosophically, it touches on the concept of intentionality, the idea that human beings don't just perceive the world, they project themselves into it. So when someone is in love, their imagination naturally begins to include the one they care about. You start appearing in their vision of a meaningful life, and that's one of the most profound signs of emotional investment. From a psychological perspective, this is connected to attachment and planning behavior. Our minds are designed to conserve energy and avoid unnecessary complexity. So when a person consistently includes you in their plans, it's because they've begun integrating you into their framework of stability. They're not just thinking about what they want, they're thinking about what you'd want too. That's empathy and foresight working together, and it only happens when love is present on a deep, stable level. You can often catch this in the smallest expressions. They don't say, I'm thinking of moving next year. They say, we'd probably want a place with space, right? Or they bring up a trip months in advance, not to impress you, but because they genuinely imagine you being there. See, are not slips of the tongue. They're indicators that their internal compass has started to align with you in it. This doesn't mean the relationship is perfect or without uncertainty, but it does mean that at a core level, they see you as part of the story they want to write. That matters because people can fake a lot: interest, affection, even passion. But you can't fake who your future naturally gravitates toward. So listen carefully, not just to what they say, but how they say it. When we starts to replace I, you're no longer a passing moment.